course, we are going to be asking for opinions, and please don't be afraid to stand up and tell us what you think, because that's what we're here for. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to introduce the sheriff and the chief deputy to start this evening. And the reason they're really here tonight is that during the annual town meeting, there was a lot of communication about the thought of us having another patrol deputy dedicated to the town of Arundel. So, with that being said, the board asked me to invite them to a meeting, which we did in July. And they provided us a presentation, gave us some thoughts about what they thought was happening here in Arundel, and their thoughts about that as we move forward. With that being said, the board then said, hey, look, let's have the public come in. They'll give a presentation. They'll ask, you folks can ask some questions so you can understand particularly what their thoughts are. We'd like to have an exchange of ideas. At the end, before we move on to talk about the location of a town hall, I'd like to have just a straw poll vote of people who may or may not be interested in it, so it gives me an idea of how we will plan next year during the annual town meeting, or whether or not the board will propose this. So it's important to have your dialogue, and we honestly appreciate you being here this evening. So with that, Sheriff King and Chief Deputy Barron.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a little PowerPoint prepared, and the Chief Deputy's going to get that right now. And again, I know your time is valuable. They only gave me a 3-hour block. I'll try to get this down. But so of course, I mean, I don't have to tell you what's going on in the world today with with crime. And I'm sure some of you may have heard about that horrible thing that happened with that famous actress. She stabbed her boyfriend right there in public. It was just a horrible thing. What was her? Reese. I can't think of her last name. Reese. No, it was with a knife. But anyway, got to prepare for my next career. But anyway. All done. You know what? You're all done.
Step away.
Well, what I want to talk about is we've had a contract up here for some time. And I sort of want to go in and speaking with Jack the other day, he said, I'd like to see what the progression is. And that was a very interesting question. And we're gonna show that right now. Sure, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, could you go to the next slide up for the
Very beginning?
yes, please. Yeah. The one where we did the total calls for service? Is that
Okay, calls for service.
Yeah, there you go, right there. That's the one. Now, when we started this, what's really important is that we look at all the calls, and then we look at what's self-initiated. A self-initiated call is that at the traffic stop, or a deputy will see somebody suspicious and he'll stop him, or he'll stop a suspicious car, or something along that line. A dispatch call is where a citizen calls. Now, when we first started the contract deputy program, look how many dispatch calls we had, 2,161. And the self-initiated was down about the mid-500s. That's because we spent the majority of our time responding to those calls that the citizen called for. Now, the goal of any of us in servicing a contract town is that we hope that the amount of dispatch calls go down. Because that right there, that we're catching it before the citizen actually sees it. And that's exactly what has happened, is the dispatch calls have gone down, which the citizen is no longer calling, because hopefully that we're taking care of those suspicious vehicles. We're taking care of those people that are in there knocking at the door and stepping back, hoping nobody answers, then committing a burglary. So, but the calls are still up there. We're still up at 3,500 for the last year, 2015. The types of calls, and I think the most instrumental stat that we have up there is the amount of burglaries. Now, those got reduced, down from where we began, 2011, 29 burglaries, we're down to 9. Domestic violence, we did have an uptick. We also had a major uptick in drug-related incidents. And we all know we had a couple of overdoses last year. You're gonna take, when we talk about, down where it talks about drug-related incidents, we also had a couple of overdoses, which you're gonna see on another slide where we talk about how long we are at scene. But EDPs, emotionally disturbed persons. The other very important statistic to see is follow-up investigations. When you see how understaffed your sheriff's office is, at least with a dedicated deputy, is that we have opportunities to do this. And we conducted 116 follow-up investigations. That's really how you reduce crime. I mean, we could have 1,000 cars out there, but when you follow up an investigation, catch the offender, and incarcerate that person, that's what really reduces crime. And motor vehicle crashes, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in depth. But look at the ratio of personal injury crashes. They're very high here in Arundel. In motor vehicle stops, we tell our deputies we want those vehicles stopped because Arundel, sometimes Route 111 is a raceway. So they are able to stop a lot of vehicles there, Route 111 and Route 1. And by the way, if there's any questions, I want you to, just please raise your hand or just blurt them out, because it's very, very important that we get this information out.
Somebody
Question
raise
from
their
the
hand.
back?
I just want to say, it's not just 111 and Route 1, it's all the roads in Arundel, most of them. People using all the roads as a speedway, look at the Limerick Road,
You know,
it's crazy.
Ma'am, you're absolutely right, and as soon as I said that, I thought about that incident on
Yeah.
Campground Road,
Yes.
where they had three vehicles
Three
were racing
vehicles.
back from the beach.
Yeah.
You're right, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an avid cyclist, if you all know me.
Yeah.
And it's just the vehicles trying to pass me and how close they get on those roads, and they're all 35 miles an hour, but nobody goes 35.
No, I know, I've seen you go, and you go pretty fast, so that people would be, no, you're right, no, it is difficult. It is,
Yeah, no, it really is.
It is a problem, and it's something that we're very cognizant of.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
I would like to piggyback on that. I live on Center Road, and my driveway is not a blind driveway. I've spoken to you about this, and Deputy has been there. But 3 times during the summer, I was almost hit by a vehicle passing another vehicle on a solid yellow line. I have an exit strategy, but it's pretty scary to be looking back and forth and
Yeah.
making
No,
sure I get out of it.
I know, traffic control is a challenge in Arundel.
Downing Road's the same way. They think that's the 4th lane of the turnpike and it's
Okay, we've got it, and we know that this is very important for us to hear, because, that's where we concentrate our efforts. And hopefully, as we could go along with the slides, you'll see that we are doing that. And
I do have a question. On Route 111 and Route 1, do we get any help from the state police? Where they
you
have state
do,
roads?
you do. Yeah, the state police do patrol that. And we can talk about that a little later on. They don't patrol it as much as they could, and I'll explain why in a few minutes.
Question.
Sir?
Related to your drug-related, where do we, Arundel, stand in comparison to other towns around here? I mean, for our population?
Where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, incidences.
We didn't do that study to see where you are with Waterboro or Lyman or any of those things. But,
I mean, related to like another town then where we have what we have in position here now. That's what I'm referring to.
I'm not understanding.
Are numbers high or low? For like your drug related, because you got the drugs running all over every place all over the country. It's
That's
not
good.
here, but I'm just saying, in comparison to another town where we have one deputy
Yeah.
and turn around about the same population, are our incidents higher? Are they lower or about the same? That's what,
Well, we were a little concerned when we saw that figure. But as far as the deputies go, you have a deputy, you have dedicated patrol 40 hours. That's about 20% of the time. You for sure have somebody in your area. But even when that deputy's not here, you would fall under the general patrol.
Yeah.
So, we would still come obviously and go to a call for service. But that's a big uptick. And the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of drugs in Biddeford. I mean, there's no other way to say it, and you board of Biddeford, there's a lot of drugs in Biddeford, they make a lot of drug arrests, they have 50 police officers in Biddeford. Our fear is that some of that crime is gonna get pushed over. It's gonna push, in fact, when there was a guy named Shane Mills that robbed the Arundel gas station, that gas station there on Route 1. He robbed it, we caught him because he put a cigarette out and stomped it out, we did the DNA, and then a couple weeks later, we killed his mother in Biddeford. And when we did the DNA, matched Shane, and we were able to get him right when he was in jail. And we asked him, why did you go to Arundel? He says, there's no cops. We knew that there's not enough cops there. So he didn't do the robbery in Biddeford.
He's from Arundel.
Yep, okay, all right, I didn't, we didn't know that, but, yeah, so and people commit, that's a good point, people commit crimes where they're comfortable.
Right.
The-
We have had overdose deaths here within the last year. We've had at least 2 that I can think of that we've had just in this year in 2015. So I didn't bring and I didn't look at the statistics for where Arundel ranks amongst other towns, but clearly there's a lot of activity that we've had.
Now, and this is another statistic that I like, because it shows the self-initiated activity. And this was in, last year, that 1,197 were from the contract deputy. And this is just self-initiated, stopping cars, checking out suspicious people, just making sure, knowing the area, knowing what doesn't fit, knowing what is just unusual for the area. And again, it's not, you know, you're driving down the store and you might see a pickup truck backed in the back of Arundel Homes. Well, pickup truck, what difference does that make? You may stop, oh, that's the owner, no problem. Well, then the deputy knows he doesn't have to stop the next time, because he's already checked that out. That's knowing the community. But almost 1,200 self-initiated contacts shows that he's out there, he's watching out for anything unusual. And we had 730 from the regular zone folks. Again, during their regular time, to patrol our 9 towns, we have 3 people out, usually 3 people with a supervisor. But that means that they could be up in Parsonsfield, they could be in Newfield, they could be in Limerick, they could be quite a ways away. But you have 730, and I would guarantee that's because Greg Sivany, your contract deputy, puts out bulletins, hey, we need to check this out, we need to check that out. Like the lady on Route 111, those lucky people, they go to Trollo, I think, they go to Arizona every winter, lucky folks. He's constantly peppering us with that, and I say, boy, they're out there in 90-degree weather and we're here freezing. But that's a good point with that, sir.
What's the average response time?
We're gonna get to that. Great. Well, usually nobody asks questions. This is great. Okay, so just so that we show, this is the town, the 14 towns that we cover. Now, 5 towns are being covered by the state police. But for our calls for service, Waterboro's #1 with 4,700. Arundel is #2 for busyness, 3,500 calls. That's self-initiated, plus those that are dispatched. And then the rest fall in there. But it's very clear to us that as Arundel keeps growing, and as we fill up those houses on Route 1 with those seasonal homes, you know, we're going to have a lot more calls for service. This is the average time on scene. And just get down to that gentleman's thing. The average response time is 16 and a half minutes. Actually, almost 17 minutes. That's a little bit deceiving. Because when Greg Sivany is in Arundel, it doesn't take him 17 minutes to get there. But when we have a call, and it's not an emergency call, it's not a code 3 response with the lights and the siren, is you have to go in the normal flow of traffic. So somebody could be in Waterboro, somebody could be in Newfield or Limerick, and they're going to make their way down here to answer the call. So our average response time is 16, almost 17 minutes. I would venture to guarantee you that with a second contract deputy, that will be cut. I don't know by how much, but it will certainly be less than 17 minutes, because almost half the time you're going to have a dedicated person patrolling your town. The average time on scene, an assault, almost 70 minutes. A burglary, a half hour. Domestic violence, 40 minutes. Usually because we try to find, we make sure we tell the spouse that's the non-combatant, where they can go for services or what have you. Theft, 35 minutes. Missing person, a little over an hour. Motor vehicle PI, personal injury, almost an hour. A sudden death, an hour and 28 minutes, and an unattended death, over an hour. Ma'am?
Well, you mentioned the other towns with this one deputy that we have now. Is the deputy sharing, were we sharing that deputy with these other towns?
No.
No?
No, if you
Because
have-
you mentioned Lyman, he or she is over in Lyman or Waterboro.
Yeah.
And it takes him that long to get over here.
That's
Where the
when-
headquarters are.
That's when your contract deputy is not here. But if Deputy Sivany makes an arrest and goes to jail, and takes the person to jail, then he would be out of the area, and another deputy would cover it. We're always out here for you. It's just that what we're looking to do is to sell you that dedicated service.
Thank you.
So you have a different response time during the time that 7 years in the town?
Absolutely, sir. Yeah, because he's here, he's gonna be within town limits.
Right.
And if he's stopping somebody and giving them a ticket for speeding, and something, more important shows up, comes in, he's gonna abbreviate that, and he's gonna go to help the citizen. So, yeah,
Would you have any idea what his average response time is? Single deputy?
you know something, do you have?
I don't have it, but I
Okay,
can,
well,
we can get it.
we can find that, but it would be, you just got him a nice new SUV that really goes well, so you're gonna be, it'll be good. And he'll drive it safely, yeah.
But that just means there isn't a deputy that's on site in Arundel. The average response time is much higher than 16 minutes.
That's a very key observation.
That's average.
That's the average.
That's the average. You can go either way on that. Much better and much worse. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
How many deputies have we had this year or last year in comparison of rotation out?
Well, we had, you had Rachel Horning, who was here temporarily until we put the job out and we posted it. And whenever somebody comes to a contract town, and I'm gonna tell you something, especially with Arundel, they really wanna be here. Troy Chenard was an outstanding deputy, and we had a need for a school resource officer. And we moved Troy Chenard over to the school resource officer because he was already trained. That's when we put it out. Rachel Horning came here for a short time, we recruited, and we picked, in conjunction with the town leaders, we picked Greg Sivany. And he just is doing very, very well. If that's what your point is, that we've moved around a couple of folks, but he's here to stay, just like the next contract deputy will be done in conjunction with the town leaders.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, as a business owner,
Uh-huh.
I don't know who the sheriff is. He has never even stopped in to greet himself, say, hello, I'm the new sheriff in town, or anything else. So, I mean, point blank, communication or anything else does help.
Right.
But if we don't know who the sheriff is, or anything else, I mean, the only one I ever knew around here who used to do that was Matt, okay?
Yeah.
But ever since Matt's left, there has been no personal
Okay.
meeting the different businesses or anything else. I've actually had to go down and say, well, hi. And he was sitting across the street from my place and said, I'm the owner over there. I mean, just to let you know, seeing me going in and out.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make sure that he does, that he does come over there. In fact, before
I
I
mean,
leave,
we have these
Yeah.
businesses in town,
Yeah.
at least the business people should know
sure.
who the sheriff is.
I think that's very important too, sir. And I'll make sure that we concentrate on that. Yeah.
Couple of questions. What is a directed patrol?
A directed patrol is if somebody calls and says, hey, the cars are speeding on Senate Road. It usually happens at 8 a.m. A directed patrol means he's gonna be in that, he or she is going to be in that area, and he puts himself out on directed patrol. In other words, unless it's something really, really important, that he needs to take care of that citizen concern. And it's usually for a half hour or 40 minutes, whatever the citizen says that the incident is occurring.
Okay, out of this 1,928 statistics, it would appear that over 1,000 of them, or 1,100 of them, more than 1,100 of them, are all related to motor vehicle stops.
Mhm.
Do you have a time as to how much, because this breaks it down by the numbers, but this is not telling us, I'm gonna tell you what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is we already pay the county for the sheriff's department. All of these motor vehicle stops, if tickets are being issued, that money does not stay within our community.
That's correct.
That money all goes to the state.
Right.
So what I want to know is, I want to know how much time they're spending on these motor vehicle stops and these direct patrols, because while they're giving people speeding tickets and so on and so forth, I'm sorry, but I think that if somebody's got an issue with breaking and entering in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
I think that that's far more important than stopping somebody who's speeding.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
May I just comment on that, because that's a, you know, I'm very pleased that you brought that up. That's a common misnomer with citizens. An active traffic unit does a lot to stop burglaries. It really goes hand in hand. In fact, you know, the burglars have told us that why they've chosen different places. First of all, you're never gonna stop a burglar because you're driving around. I mean, just because you're driving by a house, you know, and somebody's breaking in the back door, you're not gonna see them anyway. But a burglar doesn't wanna get stopped on the highway speeding or doing something else because it's trapped. Or maybe the TV or the stolen goods is gonna be in the back of the car. So traffic enforcement, I'm not a traffic guy. You know, when I was on Portland PD, I really did do traffic, but oftentimes, somebody would get stopped, and then they would have the stolen goods in their car. So that's a huge deterrent, a big, very big deterrent to property crime is traffic control. The second thing is the street light. But anyway, please, did you have another one?
No, what I'd really like to see is not just the number of breakdowns, but how much time is spent on each.
On each traffic
Well, you know, if you're gonna break it down by, you know, assisting citizens and building area checks, I mean, it would be nice to know how much time is being spent.
Sure.
You know, so if you're doing and I'm just gonna say this is on a citizen's perspective.
Sure.
If you've got a patrol officer here for 40 hours, and 30 of those 40 hours are spent doing traffic stops, then I would have to question that.
Okay.
So that's why I wanna know about the time.
And you know something, let me do a couple more slides, because you're gonna see that we don't do enough traffic in York County.
Okay, but before you do that, I have one question about the car.
You know, I was only kidding about the 3-hour block, but go ahead.
When you said you got him a nice SUV,
Oh, you got a nice issue.
thank you. Make sure you remember who paid for that, because that does not come out of county money.
Ma'am,
That's
we
paid
never,
for as part, in addition to paying for the officer, we have to pay to replace that car, and I believe right now we're probably replacing it every 3 years.
probably, yep. No, we never forget that. I hope I didn't allude that I did. Motor vehicle fatalities by county. Arundel, to me, is ground zero for traffic control in York County. And we, unfortunately, lead the league in traffic fatalities. We have 21. We have more than anyone in the state. So much so that the chief, much to his credit, put in for a grant that we'll report in a later slide. And we got $21,000. That's all we do is traffic control with that money from the Department of Transportation. And many of those directed patrols, traffic controls, are here in Arundel. Sir, did you have a question?
Did you find the light on 111 helping at Hill Road?
Well, Hill Road is one of the most dangerous intersections in Maine. I think it does.
Okay.
I think it does. We haven't had any serious crashes until, you know, since that light has been there. But Route 111 is still a raceway, you know. These are speed-related crashes covered by York County, and we concentrate on that because we really see this as a primary focus for our deputies here in Arundel. And again, you know, for the towns that we cover, 36% of the speed-related crashes covered by us occur right here in Arundel. You know, what you get, and again, I mean, as this town grows, and the town is growing, is at some point you're gonna be looking at, gee, you'll be making decisions, gee, do you wanna have a police department? Or do you want to, just, up your services with the sheriff's office? Or you wanna keep the same services? I mean, I'm just here hopefully today to give you information so that you're informed consumers. But what you get with us is you get a command staff. 36 years on York PD. I mean, when I have my deputies say, hey, I don't want to work nights, I want to work days. Well, look, just before he came over to work at the sheriff's office, he worked the night shift at York PD. Myself, and I have a lot of management experience, as does the patrol commander. We have a detective division for follow-upping. We have an accident reconstructionist. We have a tactical response team. And we got that grant, and we continually put in for grants. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you're buying a contract deputy, but you're buying the whole program. You're getting additional services from the sheriff's office. And again, just we talked a little bit. It's in your handout. You obviously know about me and the chief. And actually, just as an aside, not to embarrass him, but the chief just underwent some management training for Department of Homeland Security. They trained him as an incident patrol commander should something happen in the Homeland Security realm. And Major Paul Mitchell came from Fairfax County, Virginia. He's adept at mass gatherings, and we know that Bentley's has a lot of mass gatherings. So we feel we're very, very well poised to manage this sheriff's office. You know, we're responsible for 14 towns. 14 towns in York County do not have a police department. Now, because of our paltry staffing, we've collaborated with the state police, and they cover 5 of those towns. So currently, they cover, the towns that they cover is Lebanon, Alfred, Lyman, Dayton, and Hollis. Hollis is talking about they want a contract with us because they want our type of service. And again, we cover 522 square miles of those 9 towns with a population of, that you put down 40,000 plus. It's actually 48,000, more approaching 50,000. Now, the Department of Justice, this young lady said something like, well, we pay for the service and we get that. You're right. We do that with 19 deputies, 14 patrol deputies and 5 sergeants. So we do that with 19. The Department of Justice says they estimate you need 1.7 deputies or 1.7 officers for every 1,000 citizens. So by the Department of Justice says we need like 86 deputies to properly patrol this area. We don't have it. I'm not asking for 86. But what I'm asking for is that a town such as this may want to up and give us some assistance in having their own dedicated service. Because when we stop crime, when that deputy stops a car that maybe somebody was thinking about breaking in, it saves us a lot of time in the detective bureau if, should a burglary occur. These are the contract towns. These are the towns that took it upon themselves to supplement the service because they know that we don't have proper coverage. But Acton Shapley, they share one. The folks in Acton have been talking about, they want to break off from Shapley. They want their own. Shapley wants their own. And that's going to happen in the next couple of years. Arundel has one. Leamington has one. Parsonsfield has one. The school has one. And Waterboro just retained their 2nd contract deputy.
Sheriff, with that said, did you notice a difference in both response times and call volume with Waterboro putting on a 2nd deputy?
Well, we haven't really implemented that yet. Right now, we're in the process of choosing the person. They just voted for that. But clearly it will. I mean, when you have somebody specifically in your area, to answer those calls and to follow up those calls.
Are these 7 deputies part of the?
No, very good question, very good question. Those are, it's 5 deputies, right? We have 26 total deputies. Yeah, 7 deputies, right. 26 total deputies. But what we look for, and frankly, sir, you've really taken me aback when you said that, you know, the deputy hasn't stopped in. I've been hearing some great reports of Deputy Sivany, as with all my contract deputies. That's one thing that we really focus on, is the community policing. And that's a term that people always use, community policing, community policing. Well, what is community policing? It's not public relations. Community policing is the police and the citizens working together to solve crimes. And I believe that we do that very, very well. Because really, it's the citizens that are out there that know what's normal, that are calling us when it's appropriate, and let us know when things are amiss. And I really think Arundel, and I can't remember the lady's name, but we solved a major burglary a couple of years ago because she called the police. Somebody knocked at the door, and she said, "What do you want?" Oh, is Johnny here? No. And she shut the door, and she thought that was odd. And she called the police. She said, "Hey, listen, I think that there's something amiss." And we came down and we caught the guy, and he had just got done breaking into a couple of other houses. And that's what they do. They'll knock on the door, they'll step back. If nobody answers, good, then they'll break in. If somebody answers, they make up some name. So that's community policing, when you work together. Did I leave anything out?
Well, the solvability, if you want to talk about our crime solvability, and how well we do with solving crimes.
Yeah, I would, typically, the national average for solving a crime is right around, it's called the UCR, it's a Uniform Crime Report. A property crime is usually about 18–20%. We are consistently at 40. We typically solve property crimes. Now, personal injury crimes and murder, those are crimes of passion. It could be somebody that, you know, we've all seen that on the news, but gee, he's such a nice guy, I can't believe he killed his wife. You know, we always see that type of thing. So that's a lot more hard to solve. But a property crime, we're very, very adept at doing that. A couple of years ago, one of the ways that we did that and we strategized is we started going right to we arrested the burglar. In fact, it was a Arundel person that we arrested the burglar, and then we said, "Where do you typically fence your stuff?" And he took us to a couple of different places where he fenced it, and we were able to recover a lot of other stolen goods, and that worked out pretty well. Yeah.
The current sheriff that we have, what are his work hours? Does he have set work hours, like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5?
Well,
Yep. So he works on a rotating shift, so every 2 months he changes shifts to another time so that his schedule is always changing. So there's no routine pattern. And so if there's something going on in the town with some events, he alters his time schedule so he's there for the event. But we alter his times through the weekday and weekends so that we give Arundel the coverage all the time, all the days, at different varying times.
So if we have a second one, they'll be coordinating so that we'll have...
Right. So, you know, what we would look at is we would do some more numbers to see when the peak times are, putting somebody out there at nighttime, and also coverage for when Deputy Sivany's off, so that you would get a better coverage 7 days a week, and including some nighttime, late evenings, when sometimes that's not happening.
But we try to make the schedules data-driven, so that we know when, well, especially in Arundel, you know, when Route 111, I mean, Route 111 is one of the busiest roads in the state of Maine. So we try to have people out there, we try to have Deputy Sivany out there during the rush hour times.
I never seen him. Never.
You never seen Deputy Sivany?
He lived right off the 111.
Probably because you don't see him hiding in the church.
I've seen him there a couple times. No, I've seen the state police, but not a big presence.
They used to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm surprised, maybe I should get you a stand, because I hear him all the time, stopping vehicles, he stops people on Hill Road.
We don't live right on 111, we live off of 111.
Okay. You don't see him?
Can't be in more than one place at one time. Diane sees him.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, more than I want. Yeah.
Diane, slow down. I mean, you know, let me just say, I mean, with all seriousness, you know, this is your town. You I'm elected to provide policing services. I'm making an educated opinion, with over 100 years of experience between myself, the chief, and the major. And we believe that it's time, for Arundel to have a second contract deputy. And I think it would certainly bode well for your quality of life.
I live on 111 and I do see them. However, I would suggest that during rush hour, it's not the best time to catch the nitwits. It's, yep, it varies. We could have a conversation, but.
Absolutely.
I mean, rush hour, it's busy, but rush hour, people are usually used to their routine, they're generally pretty, they're used to each other, I guess is a good way to say it. So things flow constantly but smoothly. But there are other times when Route 111 makes racetracks look slow.
Well, what happened just last Friday, was it? Was it last Friday or last Saturday? The sun was in somebody's eyes and they rear-ended somebody and then traffic stopped. I think it was Friday, and then another vehicle was coming up and didn't see the stopped traffic and ran into them. So we had basically, it initially came in as a 4-vehicle crash. It was really two vehicle crashes.
Yeah,
But
well, the sun is not your friend at 111.
No, but and just as an aside, you've got a great fire department here. The fire and rescue folks here are awesome. They're Johnny on the spot, and they're very, very helpful to the police when we get there.
So I had a question about the staffing itself. There was a news report about 3 weeks ago on Channel 13, I think it was, that said that you're understaffed to start with, and with the graduating class, you will still be understaffed. Where are you going to pull this deputy from if we decide to have one?
I think what you saw that was on corrections. See, we have
Is
a
that
great...
correction? They didn't differentiate as to where, they just said we're understaffed.
You're talking about corrections where we graduated those 6 corrections officers, and and right now I'm 12 positions down in corrections. If you know anyone that wants a job, $17 an hour. You will work nights, but we train you and...
Yeah, but you're gonna work with a bunch of criminals.
Somebody does.
Yeah, sir.
Quickly, and you may have already answered, we came in late. Has there been a noticeable increase in crime in Arundel recently? And if the answer is yes, then where would you deploy, where would you focus this second person on? What sort of crimes?
I don't think there has been. I don't think there has been, because I think the contract deputy program is working. Okay. And earlier, there should be a handout there that we're having less calls for service, meaning that citizens call in, and more self-initiated stuff. But I think, and this happens all the time, when we go into a town, next thing you know, the calls for service go up high. People say, oh my God, you created crime. Yeah. You made more crime. And that's not really the case. We're just uncovering it, we're addressing it. But no, I don't think, and please don't, I hope I don't give anyone the impression that we're crime-ridden here and that it's dangerous and you gotta have another contract deputy that's gonna be mayhem in the streets. No.
Well, then the second part of my question is, what would you do with the second deputy?
We would put him opposite of the current deputy so that when there's always somebody physically in the town lines of Arundel. See, right now, one deputy covers the area of 20% of the town. A second one will have him within these confines, because if not, if he's not here, we're pulling from the general patrol. Yeah.
So you'd try to be lowering the response time for...
Correct. I mean, the deputy that is responding to a crash here could be coming from Cornish.
Okay. Thank you.
I thank you very, very much.
Question of action.
It's actually for the board. Could the board summarize the cost and the tax implications for adding that to it?
Yes, I can. The first year cost, as we understand, we'd have to buy another cruiser, so that's $33,000. That'd be about 8 cents on the tax rate. The position cost will vary depending on experience. The county manager provided me a cost between $82,781.66 for the low end and $99,240.39 at the high end. So we'd be looking at perhaps 20 cents at the low end or 24 cents at the high end. So you can then go anywhere between that to determine what it would be costing you.
And that's additional to what we're paying now.
That is correct.
And the total cost came up to what, for the vehicle and the officer?
The total cost at the low end was $115,781.66. The high end would have been $132,240.39 for the first year, because we wouldn't have to buy the car the second year, so that would come down.
So if I get your numbers correct here, on a $200,000 home, the cost would range from $56 to $64 additional for folks on a $200,000 home.
Correct.
The price of the cruiser would not be in addition to what we're paying now, because we bought a cruiser last year for $33,000. So that $33,000, if we were to buy another one, would basically be the same expense as we had last year. It would not be an additional expense for this year. It would not increase the tax rate by the amount of the cruiser, because we bought a cruiser included in last year's budget.
And they share the car? They're not gonna work together, right?
Well, we typically do not have people share cars, because oftentimes they have to respond from home.
And then there would be some overlap, because you are talking working a 40-hour work week. You would see sometimes where they would be working maybe close to each other or whatever. So, and we would need, and remember, the deputy wears the York County Sheriff's badge. They're part of the York County Sheriff's Office. It's your contract deputy, but in a major event, an event could happen here, we would send the troops, 10, whatever we have, 15, they would respond, but they would need to respond in an emergency vehicle to help and aid in whatever way they can.
Sir?
Do the deputies per se in the towns, do they take the vehicle home with them so they can respond back to the job in the particular town?
Yes. Every deputy at the sheriff's office has a vehicle, and they take it home. And one of the reasons is because they're like a traveling office.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if somebody's up in Cornish and there's a burglary up there, I mean, every deputy has fingerprint stuff, has, crime scene tape, has, DNA swabs. I mean, they're like little
Portable office.
portable office. Right. I know that, sir.
They have radar?
Some of them have radar and some of them don't, but.
The number of motor vehicle stops,
Yeah.
how many actual tickets are written out?
Well, we have that information. I don't believe we have it today, but we typically, every quarter, I provide a sort of a snapshot to the county manager, to the town manager, and I'll make sure that perhaps maybe we can get that on the website or what have you next time. But Greg is, he's been, I think he averages, the last I remember, I'm trying to guess, but his maybe 20–25% of all the stops he gives a ticket. And we're very cognizant.
Verbal warning, and you might as well just slap them on the wrist.
Well, we're very cognizant that money does go to the state.
Yeah.
But, sometimes if, voluntary compliance is the way that we want to go. But I know they have a lot of stuff to do, and someone said, I'm gonna leave my card up at that table, and if there's any other questions that, can wait till tomorrow or the next day, just email me, and, and I'll make sure that I get right back with you. Okay, unless there's something really pressing right now.
Could I make a request about your statistics, which are fine, but they actually don't really tell the whole story. It would be really useful to know how these numbers compare with other towns, etc., per 100 head of population. In this case, 100 is probably much useful.
Yeah.
Because some of these things are just going to increase because of population density, or number of people living in the town. That's one thing. Second, just one thing on that line, the DOJ's figure of the 1.7 deputies per 1,000 people, that includes cities like Baltimore, Chicago.
No, sir, in a metropolitan area, it's 2 officers per 1,000. In a rural setting, it's 1.7. But I understand, I get what you're saying.
I think it's important for us to break out what the response time is when you have a deputy on, stationed in Arundel and when they're not, because, 16 minutes sounds all great for now.
I understand.
But chances are it's 45 majority of the time.
Okay, yeah, and I think we can probably get that stuff, if that helps, and either that or just, you can email me and just ask. Ma'am, you had one last question?
Yeah, and this is in regards to liability, because we made the news quite recently in regards to our ambulance with mutual response with the police department in another town. So I had a question in regards to who carries the liability insurance if something happens with the sheriff's department with somebody in town, and what is the town's liability, or are we liable?
Yeah, we cover all of the liability insurance. In fact, that's a very intelligent.
So there's no way that anybody can come back and sue the town because we hire the
No,
deputy?
but the liability comes on us. In fact, that's part of the cost. I know the cost sounded daunting when you heard that. And the deputy doesn't make $82,000, but it's all of the benefits factored in, his insurances and liability insurance. So yeah, so if anything ever happens, that if the deputy gets hurt. When people talk about having their own police department, a lot of small towns, oh, we got our own police department. Well, that's great, but if somebody gets hurt, now you're paying that person for being out. You're paying, the workman's comp dividends. It's a huge endeavor. But here, unfortunately, if someone ever got hurt, if one of the deputies ever got hurt, it's going to be another person in there. Because our contract says 40 hours of dedicated service, and that's what you're going to get.
I would like to address a couple of things. First off, how many of you travel back and forth to work every day?
Everybody leaves their house.
How many of you go 10 miles an hour over the speed limit? Sometimes you get a little late. Whenever I see a sheriff, I see them hiding on Route 1 area where I try to go to work. That's where I see it. And I always flash my lights and warn people. Because I think that it's kind of a hassle when somebody wants to go to work. As far as crime moving into the town, it isn't happening. In the annual report, there was no 2 police calls. There were really no real crime. There was no real crime going on in the town. I fail to see how it's going to improve the quality of our lives to have a higher tax rate. I'm already paying around $5 grand a year in my taxes. So.
And that's the beauty of town meetings. You get your vote.
I do get a vote.
You get your vote, and look, ma'am, I've got this guy out there slowing traffic, and we're not even charging you for it. Good job, keep it up.
Absolutely. We need safety. Crimes are moving in. You made a statement in the newspaper that eventually we're going to see the crime from Biddeford moving in. Actually, Biddeford's kind of cleaning up and turning into a real nice town. It's pretty hard for people in a town that previously ran on mills when jobs got outsourced to make a living. But Biddeford's actually coming along and cleaning up. As far as the heroin epidemic, that's kind of every town. And an extra sheriff in a town sitting doing traffic stops certainly isn't going to keep someone from using heroin. Generally, when there's a crime, you get a call and you come in. Having another sheriff doesn't seem to really pan out. The one that we have, great. I just don't see a point to having a second. And the tickets, the crime that was noted, what was it? Ticketing was up 300% or more, something like that, in the town of Arundel. It was in the annual report. I don't have the exact figure. So that's my piece, and I'm done.
No, thank you for sharing that. And that's the whole thing about police work. I can't tell you what's going to happen, or what could happen. We never know, we can't put our arms around what types of crimes got prevented. We just can't do that. You know, all we can do is make sure that our deputies are out there working, that they're doing self-initiated stuff, and that they're stopping suspicious people, and they're visible. And, you know, when we're gonna talk about his visibility, soon, because I was a little surprised that we heard as much as we heard that people don't see him. I hear him stalking people all the time, usually on Hill Road.
I see him on River Road.
Well, that's because everybody's taking cameras out at the lights.
Yeah, so what I'll do is, listen, folks, this was really fantastic. I probably took more time than what you want. I'm gonna leave my cards up there, so please, you know, my email is on there, and, yeah, please give us a call. Thank you very much.
We're going to take probably a 5-minute break, so we can set up for the presentation on the town hall location. Gentlemen.
Well, can we address the board as far as,
Yeah, well, we'd entertain a show of hands if somebody, if folks who feel that they're ready for another patrol deputy. Oh, okay.
If you go to our
I understand the need for more,
you're paying
patrol, what you want to call it, there's definitely a need for coverage. My concern is another sheriff's deputy is not gonna give us 24/7.
Well, what happened
And, I know that this has been brought up prior, about talking to Kenny Bone before, but I'm wondering if that conversation needs to be brought up again. I think it's important that maybe we may have that discussion with them so that we can see what the option is. I would like to see 24/7. Me personally, if 80 hours isn't gonna cut it. Sure. That's just my.
What's the current cost of the deputy?
It runs, his cost is about $80,000 a year.
So, anywhere from 160 to 180 for the two, right? Plus the car. So,
You know what's that?
Okay, let's,
You want to take a 10 minutes?
yeah. While we have all of you here, while we have all of you here, and please stay for the town hall information. This will be discussed not only with the selectmen, but it will be discussed with the budget board. And all of that information, we'll make sure that gets out on the town website. But if we were going to take a straw vote right now, how many of you are in favor of us looking into hiring that second deputy? Raise your hand.
I'm in favor of getting more options.
Yeah.
Can you word it?
In favor of additional police protection.
There you go.
Additional police protection.
What's that mean?
That means either with the sheriff's department.
Means that we're gonna go look at something, we're not just gonna sit there and do
I
nothing.
think we need more than one option than just York County Sheriff's Department. With all due respect to the York County Sheriff's Department. I just think.
Try the rest, you come back to the
Yeah.
best.
That's right.
Okay.
Who's not?
Who's not in favor of us even going any further?
Can you ask that question again?
Okay, the first question was who was in favor of the town looking into further police protection from other source, any source? Any source. Okay. Now, who was in favor of us not looking into doing that? I'd say it looks like the majority is looking for us to look at other, looking further protection. Okay. All right.
And then, thank you. We'll take about a 10-minute break and then we'll get things set up for the protection.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
We're gonna lose them.